Hey everyone, it's iMage, and as you can see, it's just a June podcast. It's not necessarily about everything that's in June or coming out in June, but about everything kind of in general. And probably will be the only one that I make this June, but not necessarily. But that's why I gave it the title June podcast. But feel free to either listen to me talk, and you can watch the video. There's only a picture that I put up that I made a little bit ago. Or you can um, escape. You can play Runescape while you do this too, so it'd be more productive. Which is kind of what I want to be doing right now, because I don't like losing experience. But on the topic board so far is right now QBD. I'll just go in like kind of a chronological order and then just kind of draft off wherever I go. So QBD, obviously, it's not one of the things that came out in June. It came out a couple days before, actually. But I wanted to talk about it because I haven't given a discussion about pretty much drops or items or stuff, and it's just going to be kind of a short conversation because I've made like 3 videos on it. So if you want to hear other things about it, you can go to those videos. But the QBD, it came out with It came out with 4 items. Well, 4 items for the crossbow. That's one. It came out with the dragon kite shield. That's another, and then dragon bone armor stuff. That's another, and then dragon kin journals. I guess you don't really need those. But the royal crossbow. It came out with the royal too. I forgot about that. So the royal crossbow. It's kind of a low hitting weapon that once you upgrade it, it will hit higher and quicker over time. And on the QBD, at least, it's pretty good on the QBD. And I guess you could say bosses like the QBD, but how many bosses are there like the QBD? There's 0. I'm not sure how it does on Nex yet. I'm not sure how many people have tried that or tested it out. I would like to see a team use it on Nex and then see how quickly they could probably take down Nex, maybe like a 4-person team. I don't know average team sizes for Nex. But it's a fairly good weapon, especially if you can really get into those high combos. I'm not sure when it stops because it goes on based on how long the fight has lasted. So if you drink a brew, does that stop the multiplier, or did Jagex take that into consideration? And I still don't know if people actually know about that, so I'd like to see some stuff on that. But I personally can't make the video on that because I don't have 3 other people going to Nex with me. Just some random stuff like that. The other one was the Dragon Kite Shield. Why did it come out of the game? Just because they needed it to. It's kind of a cool drop. The Dragon Kite Shield actually has like 0 combat applications. There are much better shields that you can actually buy for, I think, a cheaper price. I'm not sure what the street value of a D-Kite was, or is right now, but it was something like 33 mil, so I'm assuming that it's going to go up to maybe 20 mil and probably stabilize around there, unless it's just going to climb and then keep up going high. But it's cosmetic. No one's probably going to use it. It's more like the default helm. No one really uses it, but it's still really high because it's rare. But I'm actually not sure how rare it is because I know that quite a few people actually got it on day of release. So it could be like claws and just go up, but because claws actually had a very applicable use, they actually stayed at a high price. But I can't really imagine the kite going up too high. It does look kind of cool though, in my opinion. It's spiky. If you haven't seen it, you should probably look up a picture of the D-Kite. It looks pretty awesome. But I think they were just kind of putting it in as a drop, just to put in another dragon item. Jagex wants to. I think they want to try to just fill out the rest of the dragon items. If they want to come out with something cool, if they have like a good use for it, like a D crossbow still doesn't come out. And I've been expecting the dragon crossbow to come out for like over a year since the last dwarf quest. I've been expecting the D-Kite or the D crossbow to come out. I keep on mixing those 2 up, but it still hasn't, which is kind of a bummer because 99 range was my first 99 personally, and I've always liked range. and I think it would be a good like bonus to the game. If I have to think about it, the dragon items you get as like drops or quests or something like that. They don't actually all have to be from a dragon. Like the QBD drops Dekite, but a dwarf ogre drops a D pickaxe, and Dagonoth Kings drop a D hatchet. So there's no really correlation between all of them. So by all means, the the KK, that is a bad kind of. That's going to be an odd way to put it when we actually get that boss, the Calphite King, because Jagex did actually say that they would be making a Calphite King. They said this for Runefest, so you can expect it. I was expecting it to come out near the same time as the QBD, or sometime around then, and they actually haven't mentioned it yet. So I don't know what's going to happen with that, but hopefully it comes out within the next couple months. They obviously can't release it as quick as they can, or as quick as I want them to. I'm not sure how long they've been working on it. They said they worked on the QBD though for a really long time, and they put that out in a pretty well ordered fashion, in my opinion. And it was nice. There was kind of a build up, a hype to it. And so if they're going to do the same thing with the Calphite King, then they'll probably have a long time to go for that. But what was I talking about again? I was talking about dragon items, QBD. Yeah, QBD. So Jagex is just kind of throwing out the rest of those dragon items. QBD actually was very good drop to actually have for the Dragon Kite Shield. The rest of it, I don't know what the rest of the dragon items are. There's like a short sword still, a warhammer, a crossbow, some other things like that. Those probably won't come out for either a really long time, or they'll just kind of not be important, or not really have that many uses, or just never come out. But the QBD was actually a really good way, in my opinion, to get out the Dekite. So that was nice. The other drops, what is it? Dragonkin Journal? What is that? I have no idea. I even got one, the first Dragonkin Journal, and I don't really know what it's about. I think they're trying to get more into the Dragonkin lore. As if anyone's done the Ritual of the Majorat quest, there's actually some Dragonkin that you see in there, and they were pretty epic. They caused some devastation, and then afterwards you have like this nightmare. I don't want to ruin the quest for you, but I actually made videos on that. If you haven't seen, I did the whole quest on video, and I think it's 4 30-minute video. No, I don't remember how long it is, because that makes me wonder, if it was 30 minutes, why didn't I just make it into one video? And if it was no, it was 4 15-minute videos then, because I didn't have the limit. So I've got videos up of the Ritual of the Majorat quest, but the whole point is that there were Dragonkin that came out, so maybe they're trying to get into more like a Dragonkin lore and then try to build up some stuff with that. I would love to see where that goes. It may be some more quests that I could anticipate coming out. They could be pretty frightful. I'm not sure what kind of reward you'd get from that, but I'm guessing that they kind of build it up they're gonna build it up for a longer time until they get a dropout that actually they really wanted to promote, or they really wanted to get out, or something that we could really anticipate, and then it'll just kind of nicely tie into it. I don't think they'll keep on dragging it out. They could start like a new one and then do that, but eventually it's got to end, you know. So one ends, a new one begins, something like that. And then, in all truthfulness, that's pretty much as far as the QBD goes. It'll be nice to get some more boss fights in. It did release Royal Armor, which is going to be really nice. It's fantastic. It's got a really high range bonus. I can see that having quite a few uses. I could probably use that at DKs. I like that it's non-degradable as compared to Krill's. Obviously, so do a lot of people, because Krill's or Carl's, whatever you want to call it, is being sold like crazy. I'm pretty sure it crashed. I'm not even sure if I have it in my bank still. I almost guarantee that I do though, because I used it to fight the QBD. So I should probably go get rid of that currently, but whatever. But the Royal Armor, it has a lot of uses, and it'll be pretty nice to have, especially as new bosses come out, and we see pretty much more use to different kind of combat styles in the game, along with the beta update, maybe, or not the beta server, but the actual combat evolution update. Maybe we'll see some new kind of applications to range and more ways to use it. Maybe that we won't actually want to be using one type of combat style in like a certain type of gear, so I won't want a mage and range armor. So maybe it'll actually become more of a personal range gear, and then we'll have to find out new ways to use it. I could see it being pretty helpful at this is why I say that. I could see it being pretty helpful at DKs. I just said that, didn't I? But Jagex said that they wanted to kind of make it so that that's frowned upon, or that you don't want to do that. So it's going to be kind of confusing to find some applications for it where you don't need that high of a defense. I mean, it's got a pretty high defense for ranged armor, but typically you don't want to be tanking some hits in ranged armor. So, like Armadillo, it doesn't have the highest magic defense, so you won't really want to go to Arma with it. Next, if you wear it in Next, people are going to make fun of you because everyone there's got Pernix and like Bills, so you don't want to do that either. And you won't get into a team, I almost guarantee that, unless you start making poor teams or something. For Corp, no, I don't think you'd use it for Corp, just because if you go Corp, you usually go Ganodermic if you're going in a good team. And I'm pretty sure that's the best, because you're going for mage defense, because you can just pray melee or something like that, and then tank the Corp. So probably no applications there. And then where else do you range for bosses, honestly? I mean, QBD, it could be pretty helpful against the QBD, actually. I'll probably try that out. I'll do some more testing against the QBD, just because I want to. I want to find the most profitable way to actually kill it, because it seems like the drop ratio on it's pretty high. So if you can find a way to actually kill it without using as many brews as I did, at least. I don't remember how many I used, but in total, if you can start killing it without dying and you kill it every time, then you won't have to worry about that. And if you can lower the brews down as much as possible without having like full Torva or something, it could turn out to be a pretty profitable. Can't talk lately. It could turn out to be a pretty profitable method of killing bosses. So Royal may actually have some applications there. I just haven't found out yet. So with the QBD, basically just comes a lot of new testing, since it released a new type of armor, not a really new type because it's already been out, just a better version. So basically a cheap, good ranged gear. that really hasn't happened. Obviously, no one would use Black Dragonhide in places like no one would use Black Dragonhide in places like Armadillo or Nex, but there could be the chance that actually Royal would have some better effects there, or be more valuable to use there. So it released a new armor set, a new weapon, a dragon thing that doesn't really matter, and so basically just the armor set and the weapon. Those actually bring about some new testing that we'll actually have to find out. And then once that testing's gone through, if we could find some places to use it, that would be nice. That basically happens with every boss, though, especially when Nex came out and those new armors came out. There were unbelievable amount of just like trial and error, pretty much, because surprisingly there's so many people in the RuneScape community. Not really surprisingly, but there's a ton of people in the RuneScape community, and as more people, or as a new thing comes out, people want to find the best way to use it. So you have to try it first. I mean, obviously you can guess by having just like the best stats, but I'm not sure if people thought of how useful Torva and Pernix and Virtus would be with the HP raising boost until it actually came out, and then they found out that wow, it was freaking fantastic. Along with the logs, that log boost thing that you get from having 5 logs on a bonfire, it's surprisingly good, and I still don't think some people know that. So it's weird when something new comes out and you actually have to find out ways to use it, because it takes a little bit of trial and error, and that sometimes doesn't always happen. But RuneScape community is pretty good at that, so we'll just have to wait for a little bit, and eventually we will find out some pretty awesome techniques of new boss fighting and using these armors and weapons. But to get away from the topic of the QBD, let's go to the behind the scenes for June. So in June, obviously I made this last video, or the last video that I made was about the evolution of combat, the beta version, which I'll keep on talking about in this video. Sorry, excuse me. I'll keep talking about in this video just because it's a pretty big release into the game. But there's also two other updates. One of them is kind of whatever, just shows Jagex progressing, and the other is something that I think's been overlooked by a lot of people. And if you haven't seen the last video that I made about the evolution of combat and some summer plans, you should go watch it right now. But if you have seen it, then I'll probably mention some similar ideas in this part of the video. So let's start off with the first thing that Jagex actually mentioned, which is fish flingers. This should actually be the update that comes out next week, but it's really not a big update. I think it won't be that big of an update. They're basically just buffing up a distraction and diversion that they made a while ago, and it should only give some. It should give some new rewards. You'll need to get a completionist cape. I'm not sure how well the fishing or how good the fishing experience will be so far, but I don't think it'll actually introduce like a whole new training method to fishing. I think it'll only be one of those things that you want to do weekly, kind of like you want to do penguins weekly. No one really does. Well, I mean, there's a lot of people that do. I personally can't just keep myself doing penguins for a long time unless I have some crazy hard goal that I need that extra 30k experience per week, because it's better experience per hour than what I would actually be doing. But fish flingers, they're just trying to basically take a distraction and diversion that they had and then make it better so that it appeals to more people and gives them more reason to play the game and stuff, which is nice, because it shows that Jagex actually wants to make their distraction and diversions usable or viable for players, which means that we can expect probably some more updates to other distractions and diversions if they think that those are not up to snuff or aren't being used enough by other people. They're going to limit the access to how often you'll be able to use it, but you'll probably start being one of those things where you want to use it as soon as you can just because it's really good. But that's all I can really talk about with fish flingers, because I personally have never done it. I mean, I used to be a huge fan of fishing. I had it up to like 86 before I had a 99. It was my highest level for a really long time, and then I stopped training it completely because it got kind of boring. And then this fish flingers thing came out a while after that, and I still wasn't really into fishing, so I never even went to the dock and never tried it. I know a couple of friends that have, but it sounded kind of confusing to me with just you sit there and you try different combinations, which honestly makes me wonder how many combinations there are, because in math I know I'm alright with combinations in math. I mean, I've never spent too many hours on probability, just because I hate probability, permutations, math, factorials. I don't like that stuff. Because I'm just not a probability guy. I'm more of like an analytical guy. So but I know that with any system, even if you have like 4 variables, there are already like typically, what is that, 24 combinations. So if you have 5 variables, you have something like 120, and then 6 variables, there's 720. And I know that it changes, the thing changes too. So if you add that in, I know that there's a ton of options that you can possibly have. So it seems like one of those things that you'll probably want to have a French chat, and then enter the French chat, and then they say what the best option is. You'll probably have a world. And if you can get a cool system like that, and fish flingers is actually really good EXP if you do that, then maybe this will actually be something that people will use and start playing more in the game. But that's about it. That's all I can really talk about for Fish Flingers. The other thing that's coming out during this month of June that people don't actually, I haven't seen too many people focusing on it. I haven't seen a lot of media or messages or any review kind of association with the release of it, is the Crucible, which I'm not sure how many of you have actually read Arthur Miller's The Crucible. It was about witch hunting in this. It was about the Salem witch trials, but it was talking about something in the 1920s or some crap like that. McCarthyism. It's unimportant, but I couldn't see the correlation between the Crucible and the book The Crucible, or an actual crucible like a clay pot. So I'm guessing it's probably one of those things where you have to hunt down people, and that's probably why they made it like that, or there's just actually no relation whatsoever, and they just thought it was a clever name. But it really makes no sense to me. But the reason why I haven't seen too much media on it, I think it's because the beta server testing has actually just overtaken that ridiculously. But the Crucible actually is this thing that they're going to introduce to RuneScape that I think they should, right? At least I think other people should be putting more attention on. Because obviously when Jagex releases an update to player versus player, there's a lot of hype, or there's new there's a lot of hype usually when it comes out to that. Like when they first got rid of the wilderness, that was pretty drastic, and people started not playing and stuff like that. And then they introduced this thing called Bounty Hunter, and that was a huge addition to the game because it gave another thing to go to, or it gave another way to player versus player fight and actually make money, risk money, kind of a new system. It was fun. And then once that got removed from the game, a lot of people were upset again, and then they complained they really liked Bounty Hunter. So they brought back PvP Worlds. When PvP Worlds brought back out, first off, I loved PvP Worlds just because I liked the aspect of fighting in Varrock and fighting in Lumbridge. I liked where you could fight anywhere in the world. I thought that was a cool system, and I think Jagex should probably, I don't want to say Jagex should remake that, but it was honestly really cool and really fun because you could hunt people around RuneScape. Like if you were in the Gnome Stronghold or something and you ran into someone, there was either a chance that you were about to get murdered because they were hybrid and they were really good, or they were carrying some loot on them and you could go try to do the same thing to them. But it was a kind of a cool system. I really liked it. The thing was, though, that people really liked Bounty Hunter, so they complained, or maybe they didn't complain, but they asked Jagex, or they suggested to Jagex that they reinstall Bounty Hunter into the game because it was a cool system. It gave you a target to hunt, not like you go out, you see someone, you ask them to fight, like PvP usually is. So Bounty Hunter got reintroduced to the game through another system, which was also fantastic in the Wilderness. Now that was a cool system of Bounty Hunter, but Jagex kind of completely got rid of it when they introduced PvP, the actual Wilderness, back into the game. I'm not sure why they got rid of it. I didn't look up any reasons on that. But the point is that they introduced the Wilderness back into the game. They probably assumed that no one wanted to do Bounty Hunter, or it was just too confusing to have multiple worlds when you could just do one thing. So basically they started working on a new Bounty Hunter. They probably assumed that they'd have to start making Bounty Hunter again as soon as they took out the Wilderness. And if they did, and it's taken them this long, I can honestly, I can't wait until I at least see what's happening in this new one. But so in the Crucible, it's going to be basically Bounty Hunter again, and you will actually have better aspects in the Crucible than I believe there are in PvP. Because in PvP, you get player jacked quite a bit, you get rushed, you get one item, you get hit for some stupid reasons, and it's honestly just a bitch to go out into the Wilderness, in my opinion. But with the Crucible, you go in, you have one target, and I'm not sure how they're going to be calculating this level-based or equality-based system. but hopefully they've done a good job where you could actually go out and the person that you'll be fighting is someone your level, kind of your gear, because it's not fun if you go into Bounty Hunter and then the only person that you're allowed to kill, your target, is in full Torva and you're sitting there with Rune. That sucks. And the reason why, the reason the way that they're trying to get rid of this is by saying that you lose everything. Like nothing that you walk in there with, you're gonna keep. They literally, I'm assuming this was what they meant, because in the article that they posted in the behind the scenes, they said everything will be dropped on death. They actually capitalized everything, so I think they capitalized everything, all caps. So I believe that that's how they're trying to avoid that, because obviously if you walk in full Torva, you either have the best bank I have ever seen, or you are just retarded. But so I think they're trying to shy away from that, which is good because you don't exactly want that, but you still want the aspect of having a high kind of risk system, so it's rewarding if you kill someone. And obviously there will be people that do that, just because there are people that risk that much, and it's kind of crazy, but it could turn out to be kind of a rewarding minigame. Now, the one thing that I didn't completely get was that they said once you get a lot of points, once you've been winning for a really long time, you could become the supreme champion, and this part seemed a little bit strange to me. Now, Jagex said that if you have a high enough point system or a point value, that you could be elevated to the status of supreme champion. You would be given a weapon of basically an overpowered weapon that you can only use in the Crucible, and you would have a minute of being invincible. This already seems a little bit weird. So you're given the power to not die, so no one can hit you anyways, because you won't be a target. I'm pretty sure you won't be a target. And now you're also given this pretty much overpowered weapon that you can do anything with. I'm not sure how overpowered it's going to be. I almost guarantee that it's going to be better than a chaotic longsword. Like, if the sword, I'm guessing it's going to be able to hit pretty much 700s, maybe, on just kind of like average high strength bonus, so not like full bandos, but like a DDF, or is that what it's called? DDF? Dragon Defender. So with a Dragon Defender, Dragon Boots, Strength Ammy, maybe Nietz-Not Helm, Bars Gloves, Tizar, whatever cape, or Fire Cape, I'm guessing you're going to be able to hit 600 to 700. Just kind of in that range. And that's pretty powerful. Now that's just with melee, because they're even going out with the combat beta thing, so it could be different. But with melee, that's what I'm guessing. I can only really guess with that system of combat, because that's what typical player versus players combat fighters are doing right now. So once I see the new combat evolution, it could be completely different, and there could be new. You basically might want to go with the ranged weapon, or you might want to go with the mage weapon, depending on what you're using, which is cool of the combat evolution. But back on this, so they're giving you an overpowered weapon, and they are giving you the power of invincibility, and then they're saying that you can kill whoever you want. So you go around. You don't have to have a target either. The cool thing about this was that the Crucible was that it was you versus your target. You couldn't fight anyone else, and no one else could fight you, so you would never get PJ'd, you would never get rushed. Kind of that system's gone, so that's really cool, because I hate getting PJ'd, I hate getting rushed, and they eliminated that. But now you're invincible, you have an overpowered weapon, and you can kill whoever you want, and they can't fight back. That's what I didn't really understand when Jagex introduced this concept. You basically get to do whatever you want, and then no one can kill you. Or I don't even think people can actually fight you, because if they're not your target, they can't fight you back. So I was a little bit confused on that part. And then they said that the PKers are going to be angry when you are done with that minute. So once you're not the supreme champion anymore, will they be able to fight you back, and so on? Or what happens pretty much. Like, is it whoever you attack has the ability to attack you back once you're done with that? Or is it just once they're done, hopefully they get you as their target so that maybe you can kill them as a champion or as a target and then get your loot? So there were some kind of I thought there were some discrepancies with that, and it was kind of weird. But it's basically like a safe way of PKing, except not at all, because some person could come by and just god you down, literally just walk by as a god, and then you can't do anything about it. So it gives that risk, and then it's just kind of it's kind of a weird system. It's obviously the bounty hunter system, but it's something that is new that we'll have to look out for. And I personally, I used to PK a lot, in my opinion, and I'll be out there basically, I think on game day. If it's coming out this month, I'll be out there on game day, and I'll check how it goes. Actually, hopefully it comes out on a Friday, because I have to work this month. But I'll be out there that day that it comes out, and I'll make a video on it, no matter what. So that's pretty much the Crucible in a nutshell. Obviously, it just kind of is a new system of PvP. It'll be somewhere in the wilderness, I'm guessing, in like an area, or maybe it might be like the Dominion Tower. It'll be somewhere completely random. But it's cool. It's something that I would like, something that I know a lot of people will like, and maybe we'll be able to see some kind of new videos on YouTube of people fighting in there that are kind of nice, that kind of remind us of the old bounty hunter. And I mean the first bounty hunter. I guess I mean the old bounty hunter. But it's pretty awesome, and I like the idea of bounty hunters, so I'm looking forward to it. I think I've said that before. But that's something that really hasn't got a lot of media attention, and I think it deserves to, just because it's an old concept to the game that's coming back, and there's a huge loophole in it. I mean, I think that's such a flaw that no one can fight you back, but you're invincible and you have an overpowered weapon. There has to be some way to get back at them once that's done. Like honestly, everyone should be able to attack you after that happens. Or else why would you go in there if there's like a guaranteed chance that someone's running around in like full Torva with if there's a chance that someone could run around in the highest strength bonus in the game without any risk of dying and have the complete just power to kill anyone, it seems like a big hole to me, because it just seems kind of whoever's got the best stuff to go in there and risk it all would win. And so there's got to be some like punishment, you know, because in the first bounty hunter there was a punishment where if you killed someone that wasn't your target, you weren't allowed to leave for a couple minutes, and if you picked up the loot, you weren't allowed to log out for like 5 minutes, which is scary shit if you're running around and there's going to be people after you all the time, especially if you got like a big loot, you don't have a lot of food left. Do you actually want to pick up that AGS and then wait 5 minutes, and you know you're gonna die, or just not fight them? It's kind of a weird system, but I'm hoping they thought this one out, and then they found a way that you don't have to worry about that, because I don't know why. I just hope they found out a way that you don't have to worry about that problem where there's going to be one person that just gets free reign, and then maybe if they want that, but it'll be a system that we have to go watch and see how it works before I actually judge it, I guess. But honestly, I guess the PvP community, I haven't been in touch with them a lot. I haven't looked up a lot of things like that, but I haven't seen a lot on that, so that's why I mention it. And then the last thing that they actually talk about this month for behind the scenes is the combat evolution. And not really the entire combat evolution, but the beta version of the combat evolution. So once this combat evolution comes out, or I mean once the beta comes out, we'll actually get it tested and everything. But the real thing that we actually want is the full combat evolution, because obviously when the beta is not out, it's not going to be out for the entire Runescape server. So if you go out and you test the beta combat and you like it more, you still have to wait quite a while to get it placed or placed in the game. I hope they don't take that long. I hope that there's just so much player feedback that it can basically speed up the process. Any flaws that they find with it, they can fix within like a week or two, and then they can release it right into the game, basically just a little bit afterwards. They said that on the weekend that everyone will be able to use it or something like that. So maybe the week after they're expecting to release it into the game, maybe a couple weeks after if there's kind of a glitch or a bug, but something that we can obviously test out. So they only mentioned the beta part of the combat evolution. That's the only thing that's going to come out this month. But obviously no one really minds that as long as it happens, because it's not going to have any effect on the real game, because it won't have aspects of the real game in it. I'm guessing everything that you do in the beta server, it's not going to be your character, your guy, your bank. You work and you just get you get the game before it comes out. I'm guessing that nothing there will be saved. No progress you have will really matter. So the only thing that people actually care about would be the actual combat evolution. And the actual combat evolution, it's kind of interesting in the fact that it should freak the hell out of everyone that's in PvP at least, because right now there's a majority of meleeers, and there's a minority of ranging. I'm pretty sure there's none ranging actually, and there's a minority of majors. And the majors all go out in full Ahurems. They have like Storm of Armadyl or Polypore or something that's really high risk, like in total probably up to 20 mil or more. That's basically every major's risking like 20 mil or more. No one's going out there and Mystic and stuff unless they're like one iteming, and then you can just assume that they're welfare people and you don't really want to deal with them. But the really good majors are going out there pretty much just to rush and get you after you kill someone. Because Magic has received basically Storm of Armadyl and what's the other one? Polypore, so that it hits really high, really accurate, and at least in the Storm of Armadyl's case, really fast. So there's no actual 1v1 fights between maging and something else. Obviously, the one that you'd think would want to fight mages would be rangers, but those two, if you get into a fight with one of them, you're obviously going to want to telly. Why would you want to be at a supreme disadvantage and then be risking a crap load of money and then telly? So there's no real point. So you don't actually have a full fight between any of these three combat systems. So the only time that, unless you're not allowed to leave, if you're being hunted and you're not allowed to leave, then leave the fight, then it's gonna be really interesting. You basically want to avoid the combat, whatever it's called, the combat. Would you call that part of the triangle? Part of the combat triangle. You want to avoid that part that is advantageous over you. So if I was a meleeer, I would want to avoid majors if I'm not allowed to leave. But obviously, right now, I'm assuming that they can run and stuff, so the combat evolution may have no kind of involvement around the system, is what I'm talking about. Because they're trying to make it a balance where Magic has a supreme advantage over meleeers, where like meleeers can't just claw out magicians because they'll have some kind of defense mechanism or like stun and then fly back. I saw some of that in the video of the behind the scenes that they had the other day. If you haven't seen that, go check that out. And I would also like you to listen to my last conversation I had about the combat evolution in the last video. I've mentioned that a couple of times too, but it's okay. Just because I explained a lot of this in PVM and PvP that I probably won't be explaining as much today. I kind of went over a little bit of analysis of the video and what I'm expecting to see. But the combat evolution, as I see it right now, it doesn't affect PVM. It kind of affects the way that current wilderness works, where not as many people will want to go out into the wilderness, because if more people are being successful with Magic under non-current conditions, then why would you want to go out and risk that? Because obviously, right now, since there's a massive meleeers after the combat evolution comes out, I'm guessing that it'll be worth your while to mage in something like Mystic using Fire Wave. So I would expect to see a boost of I would expect to see an immediate effect on the maging community, where more people go out in Magic and then actually take down people that are really high in melee. Like if someone's wearing full Bandos, I could expect to see someone coming out in Mystic and actually being able to win a fight against the full Bandos person on like regular Magic book, which you don't see it today at all. And if that happens, say that more people will start tellying, or more people will start leaving, so that as soon as they get into a fight with a magician, they won't want to be there. And since there will be more magicians, not as many people want to be in the wilderness that are meleeing. And then maybe some of the meleeers will get a range. Maybe some people would catch on that start using a range against those crappy magicians. And then the magicians will do the same thing, and I just kind of see that as a cycle where you either telly out, or you run, or you don't go. So, because obviously you don't want to pick a fight with someone that's better than you. So if I was ranging, I wouldn't want to pick a fight with someone that's meleeing. And if I was ranging, I would want to go and hunt down the highest magician that I could, knowing that I have a pretty good chance at killing them. So the only fair fights that you'll really see are range versus range, and then magic versus magic, melee versus melee. And I'm guessing you won't see those too often, because if you have the chance to fight someone that's at a disadvantage to you, you take it. And that'll be a typical trend for everyone. So if you go out into the wilderness, you'll probably have it in your head that you want to find someone that you can beat that's wearing quite a bit of risk or something like that. So the reason why I'm mentioning this whole thing is that I'm tying it back into the bounty hunter that I was just talking about. So in the original bounty hunter, I mentioned this before, you couldn't leave or log out for a while. Now the reason why I like that is because with the combat evolution coming into place, I want there to be, I mean, obviously I don't want to be a victim of this, but I want there to be a place where you can't leave a fight. I want it to be so that if you're meleeing or something and you run into a magician, that you can't just telly out and then be a pussy. I want there to be some way where you can basically get screwed. I mean, that sounds harsh, but it seems like it would extremely balance out the PvP system, and it would bring a lot of kind of new ways to fight, because obviously there's cheap range there's cheap range armor, there's cheap magic armor, and there's cheap melee armor. But if you're using cheap range or mage armor, you shouldn't be out there right now, because that it sucks and you can't get any kills. But if you're using cheap melee armor, then you can be OP as hell, because you probably have like a really expensive like melee weapon that you can keep on death, something along that lines. So with this combat rework, you'll have this new system, and if you're not allowed to leave the fight, then there will be kind of more variety, just more variety to the PvP system. And I hope the Crucible implements something like that. I said emplacement earlier, I believe. I wanted to say implements, where it implements this kind of punishment work or something that makes it so you can't leave, pretty much, because that would throw in so many variables into the fighting system that it'd be kind of nice to watch. It'd be cool to watch the kind of combos. Like I like watching videos of like League of Legends or games like that. I like strategy. I like playing League of Legends personally too, just because there's different ways to combo, there's different ways to play a game, there are different ways to take down opponents, there are different ways to do all this stuff. And if RuneScape starts going towards that, that would be awesome. That's one of the things that RuneScape didn't have before, that if it had now would be cool. It would be it would give a longer type of fight, a more interesting fight. into the player versus player community, we could probably start seeing things like, I mean, honestly, if you wanted to go out and make a movie on a PvP trip, on one PvP trip, and there's a lot of people out there, you have a lot of variety, there's a lot of different fighting, there's a lot of different running, it's got a climax. I mean, you could do it, you could start making longer PvP videos that don't just involve running up, clawing some guy out, and then running away with loot. Those are getting kind of old. So it's something new to the game that I'd like to see. Obviously, there's one thing that I didn't address with this, the ability to hybrid. So obviously. So one of the important things that you're gonna find is that I think more people that go into player versus player situations are gonna start hybriding. And hybriding already has kind of skill where you need to be able to be able to click and switch armors and switch prayers and switch weapons and attack styles and change ice and whatever that it's had for a while, but it'll become more technique, because now you're gonna have specials, special moves of running away, special moves of attacking that'll make it a hell of a lot more interesting. So I'm guessing that more people will actually start going towards hybriding, because if you're in melee gear and you're planning on fighting someone in the wilderness, and a magic person runs into you and starts attacking you with magic, then a good thing to do would be to switch to range, and then switch to a range weapon, and then just start ranging them. The magic person would then be at the disadvantage, and you'd have the advantage again, and that would give a whole new system. And then you could tank, or you could tank the magic hits, you could kill them, more variety. And then if the major was smart, they would have melee gear, and then the melee gear could just switch back to melee and continue fighting the melee person 1v1. And then that way there's a system where it cycles into the fight that is equal. But then, the magic person would go to magic again, and then just go to range. So they're either at a constant disadvantage, so one of them is always at a constant disadvantage, one of them is always at advantage, or there's a 1v1 fight. So if you're confident enough in your skills and your switching abilities, you can go out into the wilderness and go for a 1v1 just using two basic combat systems. So whatever you start with, you're going to want to have another pair of armor that basically gives you advantages over something that someone else would find. So this is just a way of anticipating your opponent. And in RuneScape, at least, this was something that we didn't always have. There hasn't really been too many anticipations or analysis that you need to do in PvP. I mean, usually it's just go out in melee gear, find someone else in melee gear, hit them when they're low HP, change spec weapon, attack. Now with all this, there should be new skills, it should be more worthwhile, but it also has problems, because if you've ever been in the situation, I have personally, where you want to go into a hybrid fight, but you only have like 3 mil in your bank. For a cheap hybrid setup, it's like I would guess it's like $1 mil still. When I first started doing it, it was at least $1 mil back when there was regular PvP. So actually, with deflation that we've had, it could be somewhere between 500 to 700k. But that's still a lot of money. And let's say you're not the best at hybriding, but you like the thrill of it, you like having a challenge. You're gonna go out into the wilderness, have your 500 to 700k gear on, maybe $1 mil, attack someone, find someone that's got slightly better skills and slightly better armor than you, and die, and then lose that money. Do that a couple more times, and all of a sudden you're poor. So you need another system that actually helps you gain money, or at least have basically be wealthy, because no one's going to go out into a hybrid fight unless they're got a bit of cash on them, or they're just feeling like it, I guess. But after a while, the poor people, that sounds bad, the ones that are deficient in money are going to eventually stop going to the wilderness or bounty hunter or the Crucible, or whatever you want to call it, to fight. And The reason why that's bad is because it basically makes it so if you're fighting, you're a wealthy player in RuneScape. The reason why we don't want that, basically because if you're going out into a wealthy fight, you can expect higher armor, higher levels of gear, higher what's it called? Higher tier armor, you know? So if you go out into the wilderness with, say, Mystic on because that's all you can afford, Rune armor on, say a DDS, I don't know anything else that would deskim maybe, because I'm not sure how many people can only afford a deskim, but maybe that happens. And then you run into someone else that's in the wilderness that's wealthy. They'll probably have on what, A-frames, maybe a polypore staff. They'll probably have claws in their inventory and stuff like that. So hopefully with the new combat system, there's either like a there needs to be a way of making that money back pretty easily, or not having to worry about how much money you have to spend on stuff. Runes can get quite expensive. Blood runes and soul runes right now are pretty expensive. If you're hybriding, what do you use? You probably use magic, like what's it called, ancient magics. We use ice barrage and ice blitz and everything like that. So if they go back into, just because of the advantages that they give them, but if there's specials where you get those extra advantages, such as stunning your opponent, maybe it'll be profitable to, or not profitable, but viable to use Fire Wave and stuff like that, Fire Surge, to kill your opponent, and that way it'd be cheaper, or at least cheaper on a smaller scale, but you'll still need to find some way of making money, and that's sometimes difficult for people. So it's just one of those things that there's some problems in the system where we'll have to find a way around that. So basically, go out, start making money, find ways to make money, and that should be one of your current goals, I guess, if you plan on being a PvPer or a successful PvPer. Obviously, it's extremely inefficient to go PKing on like a welfare bank. I used to PK. I've PK'd in two different situations. I've gone PKing in a situation where I have risked like 60k because my bank was less than 1 mil, and I've PK'd in situations where I've risked 80 mil because my bank was over 200 mil. And I'll tell you one thing, I died a lot less in the 80 mil gear because I died once and I was done PKing. And I got a lot more kills too. So the gear and everything really shows just how much it affects RuneScape, or at least the fighting system. And hopefully with the new combat evolution, that goes away too. I want to see it so that there are special attacks where they disregard your gear, or something like that, something along those lines, where you don't have to worry about how much money you're spending, more of how good your technique is. Obviously, having the better weapon, having the better gear should still be advantageous, but you should have the ability to win a fight not based on how much money you can spend. And then I think Jagex is actually trying to do that too. So in conclusion, we should be seeing some pretty epic, I guess, pretty epic fights coming out into RuneScape, and something that will actually be enjoyable to watch. Maybe more PVMers will get into the PvP spirit and be able to enjoy that. I mean, I used to like watching PvP videos, PK videos, bounty hunter videos, and I'll enjoy watching that again as soon as I can see this kind of varied talent, because I don't think it's too enjoyable to watch someone get a lucky spec and then just kill them. No one really wants to see that. They want to see skill. But usually when there's some kind of skill, the player making the video is along the lines of rich, and they're using some incredible gear again where they're almost guaranteed to get that combo. Like a lot of the current PvP videos or PK videos are like now in next gears and using some rich kind of weaponry or armory, and that's not exactly something that I want to see. So on a more personal, enjoyable level, I would like to see this kind of new variable skills. And then honestly, I haven't really considered anything along the PVM base of how the combat evolution will completely affect PVM. I guess because when I think of PvP, I'm thinking of my kind of level, what you're gonna do. I don't think this is gonna affect peers at all. I think it's gonna be the exact same as I was just mentioning. I think it's probably gonna be of use if you got some defense peers, but obviously not needed. You can continue doing what you're doing. You should make sure that you have a high magic range and attack and strength. I mean, that's what usually peers do anyways. So I don't see why this would affect you guys at all. But this is just me trying to think of the different kind of combat styles, because I know there's mains that this will affect, which is what I am. I'm just a high level version of a main. There's medium level version of a main, same thing. There's peers where they have like no defense pretty much at all. It won't really affect you guys. It will do the same thing that it does to mains, except in a different way, where peer will now probably just go on a lower scale hybrid fight. Maybe they won't even hybrid because a lot of peers do it anyways, but it shouldn't really affect them. And then on a completely different scale, on a PVM scale, I haven't thought about it completely because there's nothing really to compare the necessities of changing the combat system for a PVM. Because there's bosses that attack in multiple styles. There's Gerardor attacks in ranged and melee, and you don't really anticipate when he's going to switch between the two. So unless you have some kind of warning, it's not gonna affect you whether you switch to melee gear or switch to mage gear. Would that be no? Switch from melee gear to melee gear to mage gear to kill the boss. There's not going to be any real way to tell unless they change the whole system that bosses work at too. I mean, what's a boss that has a consistent switching method? I mean, Jad. Let's go Jad. Jad functions on all three types of the combat triangle. It goes on melee, ranged, and mage. And you can actually anticipate when he's going to use all of them just because of the sounds that he makes and the animations that he has. But I still don't think it would be useful to switch between all three combat styles just to kill him, just because there are better ways just to do it with one combat style. So on a PVM base, just because of the supplies needed and the armor that you can do and the successfulness of how it is right now, current bosses you're not going to have to use this system with. You're really not going to need combat evolution for this. I mean, combat evolution may add some bonuses, but it's not going to completely change the PVM system. New bosses, though, that they come out with, maybe that you need tribriding or hybriding fights, those bosses by all means could need different ways of changing. You might find it good now to maybe at Tormented Demons after this comes out. It could be good at Tormented Demons and DKs. Those are the two bosses that I know where you need to switch between styles. Those are the only two bosses that I can really see that this would be an effective update on. And you can't anticipate how it's going to be right now because if you go to DKs and you have more than one style in your inventory, you are not successful at DKs because you need a lot of supplies that takes up a lot of inventory space, and you need just a way of killing Dagonoth Kings fast. So if you have to switch between armors to kill them, that's going to be bad for bossing, and it's going to be helpful if you can just try to get as much supplies as you can and then avoid that. That's why right now, if you go DKs, you're probably wearing like Tacit's, Carvil's top, and then in your inventory you have Claws, Polypore Staff, and some kind of bow like Zarite bow or Rune Crossbow. That's the best way because you save supplies, you get to stay there longer, and you don't have to switch between the three. So it would be kind of disadvantageous to use that against DKs. And that's just kind of how the system will work for PVM. It's either going to be the same, or you're not going to want to apply it at all. So it's probably going to be negligible for boss hunting and stuff like that. It might not, though, for things like lower level Slayer monsters and those weak monsters that you can kill. But that's basically all that they had in the behind the scenes, and everything that I can think about currently. Not to mention, I've already gone past an hour. The reason why it's taking this long is because, one, I had a lot to talk about. I like discussions. I like making podcasts. And two, I wanted to make an hour-long video. And since I've done that, I'm going to end right here and say thank you guys for listening, and I'll probably see you guys soon, sometime, eventually. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, tell me how it was. If you actually listened this far, please tell me how it was, or if you'd like to hear more of these, and what I could change for the future. My voice is going to go out, though, so I'm just going to end it. Thank you guys for watching, and goodbye. Hey everybody, it's iMage Rex.
What am I doing here?
You had the actually
I am actually
going to show you
I
a
have 2 more
solo strip.
I've
Just
done
using a little bit of it,
and I'm going to
rushed
show
through
you